Hey everyone, welcome to the Be Bold, Make Waves podcast, a show bringing you inspiring stories of women who are growing and scaling their business. I'm your host, Laura Comark, a website and tech integration specialist who works with online business owners who love their work and not their website. Join me as we have incredible conversations about business, mindset, productivity, and of course, the website and tech behind the business. Let's go ahead and dive in to this week's episode. Hello and welcome to today's show. I am so excited for you all to be here. Those of you who don't already know me, my name is Laura Comark. I'm a website and tech integration specialist who works with women who love their work, but not their website. I am so excited to introduce you to my guest today, Elyse Sparkes. Elyse is a certified core and pelvic floor movement rehab specialist, a certified personal trainer, and a registered yoga teacher. She's passionate about helping people exercise without peeing their pants, relieve chronic constipation, and improve overall pelvic health, all through movement. She draws from her background as a professional dancer, personal trainer, and yoga teacher. She is certified Restore Your Core teacher and has studied the pelvic fascia through the Franklin method. Elyse is the creator of the hashtag Be Kind Body Mind, a method that helps people be more kind to themselves as they build strength, flexibility, balance, and confidence. Elyse, thank you so much for being on the show today. I am so excited to have you. Can you tell our audience just a little more about who you are and how you help people?
Yes, definitely. I'm so excited to be here. Yeah, everything that you just said is accurate. Right now, I specialize in pelvic floor and core movement rehab. And yeah, so many people deal with issues like incontinence, chronic constipation, pain with intercourse, just all kinds of pelvic pain. And so that's really what I specialize in now, all through looking at alignment, building strength, movement practices, and even just some simple self-massage techniques and things people can do throughout their day to help alleviate those symptoms and just feel better in their bodies.
I love that so much. And I was introduced to you. We actually live very close to each other. And I took a class from you because I started seeing a physical therapist for some pain I was having in my lady regions. And it was so interesting because I have two children and my youngest is now 4. And so for the last 4 years, I was in so much pain and I had no idea that it was something that could be fixed. And in going to physical therapy and then being introduced to you and taking one of your classes, I was like, I'm not in pain anymore. Like this can be fixed. And it was so interesting because we had talked after one of the classes on a Zoom call and afterwards, and we were talking and you were saying how passionate you are about really letting people know. Cause I mean, I have a ton of moms in my audience. And I remember like as a first time mom, it's like a joke of like, oh, welcome to motherhood. Now, every time you sneeze, you pee a little bit.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's just almost accepted as just a thing that happens and almost expected to happen. And just like, oh, okay, now I've had kids. And now I'm going to pee when I I said, which is some people call, peeing. Sneeze when I pee, or like hold back on some activities or fitness stuff that you want to do, like running, jumping. Also another joke is like jumping on the trampoline, that people just know that they're not going to do because of this. But even as a fitness professional for like 15 plus years before this, even I like was aware that there was a pelvic floor area and was aware about it, but didn't know that we also didn't have to live like this. And so that's why I'm so passionate about it. Because I'm like, even people who are in movement, like need this information also. So everyone who's experiencing this, like there's just so much more information than what we've been given and what we kind of see in magazines and just like simple Google searches and just the general like zeitgeist, is that the right word? Like the general understanding of it is usually the answer that we get is all about Kegels, for example. And I'm just so passionate about being like, there is so much more. And some of it is, complex and might take a healing journey. And some of it is some simple stuff that you can actually just start with now. And yeah, I think another thing also is that people who give birth usually, because it's very common to start having these symptoms around the pelvis, that people have a little bit of exposure to it, but also people who don't give birth experience this too. And I feel like, especially for that population of people, there's just like no information, no help. It's also sometimes an area that's like really hard to talk about and brings up a lot of sort of like shame and embarrassment, talking about elimination functions, sexual functions, just pelvic organs. It's just kind of can be a little bit embarrassing to even bring up to your general doctor. So like, I just want to get the information out there and just talk about it in the way that's like, it's okay to talk about constipation. It's okay to talk about peeing a little bit, like these are things that, everybody does. And if you experience those things, like there are ways, there are paths of healing.
I love that so much. And I remember it was when we were talking and you were like, I just want, if I could stand on my soapbox, I just want people to know, like, there's something we can do to get past this. And that was the thing that, again, for 4 years, I was going to my doctor and being like, I'm in pain. They were doing ultrasounds. They were trying to find out, like, is something going on? They're like, everything looks fine. I'm like, well, that's great. I'm still in pain and something isn't right. And it took 4 years for them to finally say to me, oh, maybe you should try a pelvic floor therapist. And I was like, what is that? How is that a thing? And I found a woman that I'm going to in the area locally, and she is booked out. I mean, their whole facility is booked out 4 months. So I go make an appointment and it's for 4 months from now. And luckily they call when there's a spot that opens up. But I was like, this is insane. How are you guys so busy? They're like, well, because we're really good at what we do. And no one talks about this and not a lot of people are doing it.
And a lot of people experience the symptoms.
Yeah, but no one talks about it. So that is what we are here to do today. So excited to have you on the show. As I already said, but I'm thrilled because, again, like, this was meeting you has literally changed my life and I was in pain for all these years and now I'm not. So I want my audience to hear about this. I want them to hear what is some things, if someone is experiencing pain, what would be something that they could do? Where could they go for resources?
Well, I'm like a huge also, like I should be a pelvic floor physical therapist marketer myself, because I always recommend that people do go to either a pelvic floor physical therapist, or there's also occupational therapists who specialize in the pelvis. And just to be clear, what I do is a little bit different than that. So I am not a physical therapist. I like to make that really clear. But I suggest that everybody go to see, if you can get an appointment, go to see a pelvic floor physical therapist. And then after that, we'll have a lot more information about what's really actually going on in the pelvis. And then from there, what I do is I look at things like everyday posture and alignment that can really influence the way that your pelvis feels. We do a lot of strengthening for the musculature around the pelvis so it can be supported. Even just breathing practices are really, really important. A lot of us are holding a lot of tension throughout the day without even realizing it. Like, kind of the idea of like clenching the pelvic floor area, hugging in, even like hugging your butt or clenching your jaw. These are all pieces that are related to each other. So even just awareness of how you are sitting, standing, walking, exercising, operating in your day can be really effective for reducing pain. I forgot the actual question that you asked me, but I was just
It was, no, I thought it was where can people go to kind of get more information and find out, like, if they're like, I'm in pain. This is me. You're talking about me. What do I do? So I feel you answered that. Saying first step is go find a physical therapist, pelvic floor physical therapist, or an occupational therapist. And then tell me how you help people in your business.
Yeah, so I work with people either one-on-one or in group programs, and I also have virtual workshops that help inform people about their bodies and just learn educational aspects. I think for the pelvic floor specifically, having a basic understanding of the anatomy is really, really important foundational step, because I think that unless you're in biology class or like, in anatomy class and getting very specific to the region, I think we just tend not to know really what is going on in the base of our pelvis. And, again, like I said, there's kind of like a cultural, probably societal like element of, shame and embarrassment. This is something that we talk about, but like you need to know the anatomy of your genitals. You need to know the anatomy of these things that are so important to the functions that you do every single day. So I do a little bit of that, just teaching some basic anatomy in a way that like everybody can understand, in very like uh, plain, simple terms and words that we use every day, so that you can immediately apply these things to yourself and to your body. So there's an educational aspect, there's an awareness, just gaining some more body awareness of like what I mentioned before, like even just being aware of, are you holding tension? Or are you not able to find engagement at all? And just having the awareness. And I know I said about uh, non-birthers before, but also for people who have given birth, it's often really challenging to reconnect to this area after there's been an element of trauma, let's say, in the birthing process. And so, reconnecting in that way for everyone else, also just having awareness and reconnecting. And then as far as the movement goes, we're building strength, we're releasing tension. We are kind of balancing out the structure so that the pelvic floor can do its job. And I think this is another sort of like confusing element to, if you're just to look in a magazine or just read a basic article online, it will be like Kegels, Kegels, Kegels. And Kegels are generally thought of as the contraction and release of the pelvic floor area. And there's words that go along with that get talked about, like tight or weak or, strong or whatever. And in a way, I almost get like, I wish that we could just take all those words to the side and really just look at more of a balancing out of the structure so that it can function. Like, for example, I think a lot of people think that they want to get tighter and they want a stronger pelvic floor. And while there is an element of that is true, we also want to be able to release and open. And we need to be able to do both of those actions. So I think about it more like balancing it out so the core and pelvic floor can be really reflexive and respond to the actions that you need to do in your day. So we do a lot of that. And just also look really from head to toe at how everything relates to the area, and things that seem really unrelated, like your feet, can really play a big role in the picture. So that's why I love looking at it from this lens, because it's really kind of like a full body, really, holistic approach to helping heal these symptoms and just feel better and stronger in your body overall.
I love that so much. I got so much out of the class. I took a Restore Your Core fitness class from you, and I was envisioning and like, okay, I have not done a workout class since before I got pregnant with my now 6-year-old. And I was like, oh, how's this going to go? And it was very different than what I was envisioning, because I was picturing like, okay, we're going to sweat. There's going to be a lot of movement, anything before. And it was very different than that. It was like you said, there was a lot of breathing. It felt like a lot more like internal, like from within instead of external. So like less crunches, more let's do slow breathing and like focus on being in tune with the movement. And it was really interesting because I know like my first class I did, I was like, wow, I am sore. And I didn't even break a sweat.
Yes. I know when people come in like thinking that they're going to get a workout, I'm always a little bit nervous because I'm like, it is, but it's not going to feel like that. Yeah. So the way that I really like to think about it is we're doing, especially in that class and in the one-on-one sessions and the workshops as well, it's like we're really looking more like about repatterning habitual patterns, for lack of a better word, repeating that word. But we're looking at like repatterning how your body functions so that you can go on and not have to think about it so much. Like when you're picking up your kid, when you're moving something heavy, when you're running, when you're jumping, when you're laughing, we've repatterned it to a point where it kind of knows what it's supposed to do. For example, like make sure that you're not peeing when you don't want to be peeing. And the class is very like alignment focused. I also think about it sometimes as like this bridge from what you may or may not be doing in your physical therapy work, kind of like a bridge from that type of work into maybe a more focused lens. But we're definitely not, I don't think there's a crunch in sight in that class, or really very much even fully on your back, only doing something like on your back, like a more traditional, like core quote unquote type workout. And the reason for that is that, I mean, there is a little bit of that, as you know, but the reason for that is because we're really trying to train how you move throughout your day. Like you're not on your back all the time, only doing that. You're standing up from a chair, you're taking a kid from a car seat out to like probably a a kid with flailing arms and legs also at that. Like you're taking a kid from this side, from your left side over and putting them down on your right side. Like you're doing these things throughout the day. And so we do a lot of standing, rotation, hip hinges, even upper body mobility, because again, like I said before, it all relates, and we want it to be really mimicking the places that you're seeing your symptoms come up in your life.
Oh, I love that so much. And that was exactly like what I felt that I got out of it, was learning more about, working on with the movements that I do every day, not doing a bunch of push-ups and crunches and burpees.
Yeah. And I mean, I love those too, but it's just helpful to slow down sometimes. And it's helpful to kind of like take a look at even like what is your engagement process when you're going to go do a crunch or a plank or a burpee. I find that it's really, really helpful to like go way back to the beginning, like back up a lot. And it doesn't always have to take that much time, like you can kind of process through it. Everybody's different, but for some people, like even a couple of weeks and apply it to those activities, or even do those activities while you're doing movement rehab. They can go like really hand in hand, but it's so important to like really kind of take that lens and look at how everything's working together.
And I love that I felt like it was the first time I've ever been in a class that really felt geared towards women. Like this is stuff that as women, we're all dealing with our pelvic floor and some of the issues and pains we're dealing with, and like really focusing on restoring health and strength to that area and how it, that flows through to everywhere else because everything's connected in our body. So that felt really, really good and very different again from like something that I personally had ever really experienced in a class. So
That's
love that
awesome.
you're doing
Some
that.
some feedback that I've gotten just about that is like I have these pelvic models now, and even just showing people where their organs are situated inside their pelvis, like that alone, I've noticed a lot of people just eyes brightening and being like, "Thank you," because I just didn't really ever have that visual or never sought that out or been told that. And sometimes it's just so helpful to have that information. Okay, this is here, this is here. It also gives you so much more, what's the word I'm looking for? Um, I'm missing the word, but advocacy for yourself when you then go to a different type of doctor, or if sometimes I do, many times I do refer people out to different types of practitioners who can help in a more specific way, and it's so helpful to then be able to point here, use the anatomical term, and be like, this is what's happening. So yeah, I think it is very supportive to be in an atmosphere where we can talk about that, we can bring up the subjects, and we can just kind of have like a normal conversation about it.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I want to switch gears a little bit. And because I am a web designer and tech integration, and I love all those pieces of things, I would love to know if we can talk a little bit about like the tech side of your business and like what you use for your website and running your programs and all those things.
Yeah, definitely. Um, my website is on Squarespace. But I do feel like I sort of have one foot in Squarespace and one foot elsewhere. So it's like it is on Squarespace, but it's also not. I have this other platform that I use called Simplero, and it is um, my email hosting platform. It's my video platform. It's like all my automations. It's like where my courses go through and landing pages. It's like all of that stuff. So I feel like I am probably gonna like step out of Squarespace and step fully over there, but I haven't quite done that yet. So I still have those are both my main tech pieces.
Love that. When did you create your own website or was that something that you hired out?
I did create my own website. Yes. And I have hired like contractors along the way to do bits and pieces, but for the most part, um, yes, I did it myself.
That's amazing. Would you say, what was I going to ask you? I had something and it just left my head. Um, when did you take your business online?
So I took my business online in about 2012 or 2013. I think it was 2013. I actually, so I had been up until that point, I had been working as a personal trainer and going to people's homes to do sessions. And then I got pneumonia, and could not work for a month or so. And I had this, realization that that's not good. And I kind of wanted to have something else that I could support my in-person work, because I still, even to this day, I still really do like working one-on-one, and I like working in person as well. Um, but I wanted to have something else also. And so, I mean, honestly, my first thing that I sold online was like, I think I decided 3 days before that I was going to do it. And then I wrote like one email to my list, and I don't even remember how I had them pay me. Maybe I had them send me PayPal or something. I don't remember. And then I rushed real quick. Actually, it was only going to be a PDF that I was going to sell with like support throughout with however long it was. And then at the last minute, I was like, I should make a video. And so at the last minute, I filmed a video at the time I was living in New York, and people kind of like later kind of teased me about it because it was a New York backyard wasn't really a backyard. It was just sort of a cement thing with like barbed wire in the background and like broken glass and everything. So like that was the background. But it actually like people joined it and we did it. And I was like, I loved the feeling of it. I was like, this is amazing. And we had probably at that time, a Facebook group. And, we had some sort of, it must have been Facebook at that time. And so there was like the community aspect, and I just really loved it. It was also then I started making videos, and it was all really practical because I noticed, there were things that I would just repeat to a lot of clients, and a lot of clients needed the same type of movement. And I would, write up again, like PDFs and stuff. But if I could just send them a video, then, they could follow that. So I started doing that and putting those together. And then, as time went on, I got more advanced technology and got automated systems. And I had a really popular like 21-day program, and that turned into a membership. And I think maybe contrary to a lot of people's trajectories, I actually decided when I had my kid, I decided I'm going to close my membership. So that stuff is all closed. But now I have now in this new iteration of what I'm focusing on, have the workshops and online programs with that.
Oh, I love that. I love hearing everyone's story, and especially like how far we've come. And I also really love how you talked about you just kind of did it in perfect action, because that's something that I love for our audience to hear about, because I know as a recovering perfectionist that I'm always striving to like put out things before it's perfect, because that's hard for me.
Yep.
And I hear so many success stories of when people just put it out there. Don't worry about the broken glass and the barbed wire in the background, because you're providing value to the people who are showing up. And that's the important piece.
Yeah. Yes. I just totally did it. And I feel like some of it was just almost like when you're in the beginner's mindset of like, you don't know what you don't know. Mm-hmm. I was kind of just there, and I was like, no, just going to do it. And I did that, I just was like, let me see if this works and do it. And I find sometimes I tend to operate well in that space. I think sometimes when I learn more and know more, that is when I tend to pull back. I'm like, oh, now that I know that it could be like this, or there could be this piece of tech that could help me, blah, blah, blah. Then I start to like slow down a little bit. So I think some of the reasons why I closed some of those things was because I was getting a little bit like too into like, okay, well, I need lighting. I need like a proper mic. I need like all of this stuff. And I've almost now gone back to just like doing it really raw. Like a lot of my online stuff is just a Zoom recording, and not like having to have, I got to a point where I was having like beach backgrounds and like, doing all this stuff. And I think for me, also, obviously the times have changed. And it's, I think gone through these different time periods of what is sort of like the thing to do online. And I think now it's just widely accepted to be like, yeah, this is my background. This is my living room. So yeah, but I think that inspired action and just doing it is like one of the most helpful things to go for.
I love that. And I agree so much. I would love to know, what would you say some of the biggest challenges that you've overcome since starting your business?
I think the biggest challenge, and the one that I still come up against, is I think like I have a hard time delegating, and I kind of try to do everything myself, like doing my own website. And I think that the times when I've been able to hire people and the times when I've been able to like trust someone's expertise and kind of give that over, like I've seen a more rapid um, growth or success or whatever you want to call it. And it frees me up to then like be my creative mind and actually like have my hands in the work, which is what I love to do. But I also love like the behind the back end stuff too. I actually am really interested in that and like that as well. So I have a hard time sometimes like stepping out and hiring out. And so I think that would be a challenge that I've come up against many times.
I know I can relate to that, and I'm sure plenty of our audience can as well. I found in my business when I started hiring out, like I struggled for years with the copy on my website. And then finally met a copywriter who I really jived with and hired her. And I was like, this is so easy. Like, and I don't even really know what all the copy says on my website because I didn't write it. And then I overcomplicated the design and partnered with a designer, and I did the piece that I really love, which is the build. And we work together on a lot of projects, and she does the design and I just go and like make it look like the picture she sent me, the PDF basically. And it's so amazing when you can be like that feeling when you're just able to work in your zone.
Yeah.
Like that's amazing. And I can do all those other pieces, but it doesn't bring me joy.
Yes.
And so that's the thing that I found, that when I started hiring out for those things, I saw the biggest shift in my business and in my mindset. And I started to get more growth because I hired out, which feels like it shouldn't work that way, but it does.
Yeah. And I feel like it's also somewhat of a skill in itself, like to be able to communicate, like, this is what I want. Can you help me with this? How do we do like that in itself for me is a skill that I feel like I do practice and I need to want to practice more. And yeah, it can be such a challenge, but it's so helpful when I do it.
Love that. I am such a big fan of celebrating wins. I feel like as entrepreneurs, we don't always look back and celebrate how far we've come. So I would love to know, when you're kind of looking back on your journey, what's something that you can celebrate about how far you've come?
I think that, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is that I just celebrate how many people I've gotten to work with and how many, like, my favorite thing is when after I have worked with somebody and like even within an hour, let's say, and they can say, I feel so much better in my body than when we started. Like that is just a huge celebration win for like my whole career. But I had something else also. I think what we were just talking about, like building out the systems over time that have a bit of automation and have a bit of like this back end piece um, has been such an educational experience. And now when I go to set something up, if I have a new workshop or even, you know, just a new offer, um, now I feel very confident in my ability to just be like, okay, this email is going to go out here, this email is going to go out here. I want the customer experience. Like I want them to go through this path and then I want them to be able to receive this. And like, it kind of just, I can do that with a lot more ease and a lot quicker now. And I feel like just on the tech side of things, that is a huge thing that I celebrate, that I kind of like get those pieces. And it's always changing, right? Like it always changing. So there's always an evolution with it. But I feel like right now those things come a lot easier.
I love that so much. Like that is something that I always strive, like when I work with a client, that I want them, even though I have plenty of clients that never want to touch the back end of their site. I had a client who we were messaging the other day and she's like, you got me to a place where she's like, on a whim, I did this webinar and I was able to make a copy of this other page that we already have built. And she's like, I did it. I did it all on my own. I was like, that's amazing. And that felt so good to me that I've built it for my client, and now she's able to go in through the training we've done and like make a copy and go in and like put in the replay and send it out to her list. I'm like, that's incredible. And I love that because I think it's so important as entrepreneurs that we are empowered to make changes to our tech and we need to know how the tech works. And that being said, just because you should know how it works. And if you don't want to touch it, that's totally fine too. That's why people like me exist, because I love that stuff. And I can sit and do that all day long, but I do want my clients to feel empowered to go in and touch the back end because it is so important to understand how it all works and to have it be simple. That's key.
Yes, that is so key, especially for someone who I feel like I enjoy learning about it, but it just doesn't feel like it's not like my zone of genius. It's not the background I come from. So I feel like simple and clear and like user experience friendly is very helpful.
So important.
Yeah.
So I have just a few more questions for you because we are getting close to our time, but I would love to know, and I feel like this is a really fun question for you because I feel like a lot of what you're doing is being really bold in the industry. So I would love to know, like, what do you feel that you're doing that's really bold for your industry?
I think it is what I mentioned before about trying to expand this knowledge beyond just the pre and postnatal population. Although I love working with that population and it's very, very important for that population, it's also everybody else as well. So that's something that I really want to do is expand the whole pelvic floor and core awareness to anyone who's dealing with these symptoms, even if they haven't been pregnant or haven't given birth. So I feel like that's a little bit different than what I've seen or what I've experienced in this field.
I love that. So I have one more question that I ask everyone who comes on the podcast, and that is, what is one piece of advice that you would give to someone when they're first starting out in their business that would help them be bolder, be louder, and make waves?
I think it's that you don't have to know it all, and you probably won't. And that's okay. And to, like what we said before, just take those inspired action steps anyway. And just, it can be very overwhelming to start a business once you like take in all the different aspects of it. And you're not meant to know all about everything. So just, really know that you can just start with what you have, start with your offer, your service, your product, whatever it is, like just start with that. And then these pieces will build over time. You don't have to know it all.
I love that. And I think that is such excellent advice. Thank you for sharing that. Elyse, thank you so much for being here today. Can you share with our listeners where they can come hang out with you, find out more about you, work with you?
Yes, I'm everywhere at my name, which is spelled a little bit funny. So it's Elyse is Elyse, and then Sparkes, Sparkes. So that's my website, ElyseSparkes.com. I'm mostly on Instagram, also at Elyse Sparkes. So those are two great places to find me. I have a lot of, resources on both of those places. And I'd love to hang out with everybody.
Wonderful. I'll link all that up in the show notes. Go check out Elyse, go hang out with her, go find her on social and give her a follow. She's got lots of great information there for all of us women. Elyse, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode. Be sure to check out the show notes at lauracomark.com/podcast. And if you're ready to turn your website into a marketing machine, get more sales, save time, and simplify the back end of your business, grab my free resource, Power Integrations for your website. Head on over to lauracomark.com/power. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next week. Bye now.